In this module, you will look over my shoulder as I go over to Amazon and have a look at covers to get some design ideas and look at trends. So here I am on Amazon.com. I'm going to go ahead and click on Department, mouse over to Books and Audible, and click on Kindle Books, because that's where I tend to do most of my research for covers. And from here, I'm going to go straight to the bestsellers. Why look at everything else when we can just go ahead and look at what's selling and what's doing really well? So let's take a look at Business and Money. Assuming you're working on nonfiction books. So here are the top books at the moment in business. Let's just take a look through them. I can see that there's a fair bit of red, a little bit of blue, and with the possible exception of lovely Cheryl here, who's still in the bestseller list after a gazillion years, there are no photographs. Oh, no, that's not true. There's also this one. So it's just two that actually have photographs of people in them. The rest of them are some kind of graphic and sort of vector graphics, illustrations really, rather than photographs. That's sort of a photograph. That's also quite nice. But you can see that the overwhelming majority of them don't actually have a photograph. The other thing I notice is that for the most part, there are some simple patterns as backgrounds. This one's just plain white, as is this one. And we've got perhaps this one, the Business Adventures and Master of Evernote, that's a little bit busier. But for the most part, you can see that they've got clean, very, very simple backgrounds. So this is, if I'm doing a business book, I'm probably going to look at using some red. I'm going to look at using some yellow and orange, so lots of primary colors. Orange is not a primary color, but it's sort of a cross between white and red, so, or is it white and yellow? I mean red and yellow. Let's go out of Business and Money and let's see if we can pick a different one. Let's look at, for example, self-help, which is another very popular niche. Looks like it's the same book at the top of the pile for both. The Mini Habits one. Here, once again, you can see that it is only illustrations with very little, or actually no photos as such. And once again, big font. This one, The Power of Now, is sort of that bluish, yellowish color. And all of the fonts are big and clean. So these are the two things I take away from this, is to have as a background some kind of texture, a small illustration or graphic, and keep the cover mostly text heavy. Another thing that comes to mind, which I'm seeing here on these covers that seems to be common to most good-looking covers, is that there is a lot of white space. Even on this one, this Love Yourself, lots of white space, lots of room. So you don't have, they're not busy. This is probably the busiest one, The Gifts of Imperfection. But even with that, you can see that there's a ton of room around that little red graphic and so on. So now we know three things about these. We know that they use an illustration rather than a photo. We know that it's using primary colors. We know that it uses big, clean fonts. And we know that the color that it seems to favor is red with lots of blue in the background. Let's pick a third category. Go back to Kindle eBooks. And what should we look at this time? Perhaps let's go to computers and technology. Some of the same books are appearing here in that category as well. Once again, as nonfiction books, I am seeing more illustrations than photographs. And if I look at what really jumps out at me, I love this Geek Sublime. It's quite interesting, although the S is sort of falling off the page. That's not very nice. Hasn't been released yet, and it's already at number 2. We can see that there's this blue and this blue, an interesting way of using that cover with a little bubble here in the middle. That's quite nice. I find the social media book to be quite busy, but having said that, it's quite compelling, and it's been in the charts for absolutely ever. I can't say I like this August 2014 250 plus Best Kindle Fire books. It's not one of the ones that jumps out at me, and it looks to me to be a little bit too busy. So if I were choosing amongst all of these, certainly my favorites are this Launch, followed by this Geek Sublime. I just wished it looked a little bit better here and it wasn't falling off the side. So this is basically how you go and you take a look and get some design ideas. So now I know that when I'm looking for the components that are going to make up my cover, I have a rough idea of the colors that I'm looking for. And I also have an idea of the kind of object that I'm going to be looking for. One final comment I want to make about this. It seems to be pretty much divided in terms of the covers that are using light color print on a dark background, like Launch here, and the ones that are using a dark print on a light background, like the End of Absence and so on. The ones that try to go for the middle sort of ground are not very visible. And this is what you need to think about, that when your book is getting looked at, especially if you're publishing on Kindle, you need to be able to read that title at a glance. So you probably want to go for titles that look like this so you're immediately able to see it, rather than having to really look to see what it actually says. And with that, we come to the end of this quick research module, and what we're going to do next is go and pick out our resources and the pieces that we need.